Even though Guts did go for the head, we still have about 90% of the inhabitants on Elfhelm completely dissipate into the ether, and I think it was a shock for the entire Berserk fandom. Honestly, I didn't see or hear anyone predict that this would happen or that all these characters would just vanish, and we were all trying to make sense of what happened when we read it, the same way that the remaining characters are just sitting around thinking, what the fuck? We don't get another Berserk chapter until mid-October, and saying that, making it seem like it's a long wait, and realizing that there have only been 11 chapters of Berserk that have come out since I've become a fan in early 2018, and that's including 5 of those chapters coming out in this year of 2022 alone. We really gotta count our blessings with the releases right now, man. This is unprecedented. But also, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a gap in time after the next chapter, because this will be chapter 6 of the remaining Elf Island segment of the story that they said that we were going to get. So until that time comes and we get a little bit more of a lore explanation of whoever is left to tell us, I will do my best to piece together the puzzle that is before us. But of course, remember, all of these are just my opinions and my headcanon, and I will be using evidence from the story to support it, but it's still just my opinion. I'm not trying to say this is the definitive only way to interpret this chapter, it's just how I saw it. But I think it's important to first go back to a little flashback chapter called The Spring Flowers of Distant Days. This 3-part segment happened just before Guts and company got to the island, and yes, it was a cool little flashback to see young Guts again and get a sense of what he was up to in between leaving Gambino's camp and before joining the Band of the Hawk, but it also gave us Chich, a little astral creature within Guts' cell that helped him heal and give him some company before he was forced to fight that nobleman's son. For canon purposes, it was explained that Guts was in a weak and delirious state of mind, so he wasn't sure if Chich was real or just a dream, but Chich states that she is connected to her spirit flower, a small singular plant growing within the cell, and she says when all of its leaves are gone, that she will disappear. It's the flower that's tethering her to the physical world, but she begins to use the leaves up in order to heal Guts, and by morning, she had used them all, and all that remained was the stem of the wilted flower, and no Chich to be found. Now, for years since this chapter came out, many people assumed this meant Chich was dead, that her life itself was bound to the flower. And I think we took it as a little sad chapter to just show one of the more depressing things that happened in Guts' life, but why were these chapters really told, and why place the flashback specifically right before the characters got to Elfhelm? Well, that's because Elfhelm had within it a gigantic, strong, and powerful spirit tree, the giant cherry tree where Danan first appeared and the Corridor of Dreams was performed. So, if you contextualize it a bit, this giant tree is kind of like a massively more powerful version of Chich's little flower. It is something that binds the astral creatures to the physical world where they can exist. And this gets into what the spirit trees can actually do. And honestly, I've been planning a spirit tree monster manual for a while now, but more and more information keeps coming out with the new chapters, so it wouldn't be a full concrete video to take a look at them just yet. We first see a spirit tree when Guts and company meet Flora and Shirake for the first time, and it's said that they exist around the world and act as sort of siphons for the astral world, limiting its merger of the astral and physical. Basically, where the spirit trees are allow for astral entities to exist, but because the spirit trees are there, it blocks the astral world from coming into the physical world en masse. So we get a teeny tiny little area of magical fun time rather than an entire planet of it. That is, of course, until Griffith was incarnated back into the physical world and began his domination and world conquest. As part of his plan, Griffith ordered his demon army to begin destroying and burning down the spirit trees, wiping them off the face of the planet so that eventually, when he killed Ganishka, he could awaken the World Tree and cause the Great Blast of the astral world, essentially merging the entire planet together with the physical and astral worlds. But here's the thing. If the worlds are merged now, would that not mean that Elfhelm residents wouldn't have anywhere to disappear to? Well, not necessarily. The astral world of Berserk is not just one plane of existence like the physical is, but could involve hundreds to thousands of different layers. We know one of them is Klipoth because we've seen a glimpse of it, but also the realm of the eclipse ceremonies as well, and of course, the deepest, darkest depths, the swirling abyss of souls, which is the Berserk version of hell itself. I would assume that even the arrival of the World Tree that brought countless monsters and creatures into the world still is not connecting all of the layers of the astral world, including the God Hand levels of darkness, or the areas where more good-natured and positive astral creatures reside. So, if there is nothing connecting their specific layer of the astral world to the physical, then the worlds do not overlap. The spirit trees allowed them to overlap. Once the flower, the tree, or the massive cherry tree is destroyed, that tether is now gone. The only tether now is the world tree. So to help explain, the tree on Elfhelm was so large and so powerful it was allowing all the creatures to interact in the physical, and without it they returned to the astral world involuntarily. So they are not dead, Danon did not take them there, they are just unable to exist here now. But the question is, why did Ysma and the Marrows disappear too if they are not from or connected to the island? Well, we don't know how far reaching that this tree's power was. It's clearly the biggest and most powerful spirit tree that we have seen, and it might attribute for the entire ocean. Or maybe the Marrows were in fact originally from here. Or perhaps they had just spent enough time here now on the island they sort of assimilated to it. This will require a bit of explanation in the next chapter, hopefully, but I don't think it's too great of a leap to assume that they would be included in the disappearance. But then we also have Puck to consider. Now, Puck was from the island technically, but he's also been off and spent a lot of time with Guts since then. Now, I do think it would be a tremendous writing mistake to have Puck disappear without us, the audience, seeing it happen. He's been with us since the very first chapter, after all, and if we don't see him disappear, that would definitely be a mistake. But it has been speculated that he was part of the disappearance, so we'll have to wait till the next chapter to truly know, but that would be an absolutely devastating loss for the story. Honestly, I could see it going either way. Either he disappears too, or maybe he has such a bond with Guts he is somehow able to still be perceived by him. I don't really know. But there is another aspect of this I want to talk about too, and that is the perception of astral beings and what this means to the overall narrative. Other than just being a sad moment for our characters, I don't believe the sinking of Elfhelm was just to give Guts another bad day. I think that this is probably a place that Griffith had been looking for some time to eliminate that spirit tree. And what does it mean that he did? We know that astral entities come from the thoughts, fears, and desires of mankind's deep consciousness, specifically a connected consciousness. If enough people all believe and feel something on a massive scale, it starts to come into being. The incarnation ceremony, taking place in an area filled with pain, torture, misery, and a desire for a savior, was the perfect spot to gather everyone en masse and use their panic and desperation as fuel to the fire that gave rise to the answer of their salvation, which was Griffith. I believe a similar event is primed to happen in Falconia, the only safe haven on Earth for humanity, gathering everyone into one convenient box for some ultimate sacrifice. It's not just having people physically there, but it's also the manipulation of their consciousness and desires. It's mentioned that 1,000 years ago, when this cycle of fate began, people were more connected to the spiritual and open to the positive sides of the astral world. But over this 1,000-year time, since the fall of Geyser's kingdom, mankind has become disconnected with them and essentially forgotten their existence. And alongside forgetting the spiritual, they were also introduced and indoctrinated with the religion of the Holy See. Only one way to think, only one way to believe, and only one God to look to. Unbeknownst to them, that God is an ideal manifestation of their collective desires, the idea of evil. It gets so predominant in mankind that people truly turned over to it and can't even perceive astral creatures even when they're right in front of their face. But then something happened. With the blast of the astral world, suddenly Griffith reintroduced humanity to the astral entities, but only the ones that were brought forth from fear, pain, anxiety, and panic. Monsters beyond our wildest nightmares now walk the earth. So the only context humanity has for astral beings are these monsters, and the only safety from those monsters comes from Griffith and the Apostles. Yeah, the Apostles are what mankind now perceives as its protectors, and this is all by design. Destroy humanity's connection with positive astral beings, basically erasing them from their subconscious, only to have what is left, which is the horrifying monstrosities. And it seems like Griffith is now on a mission to eradicate all of it. The spirit tree destruction removes the last remnants of the positive creatures, and he is literally battling in war with the darker ones. Perhaps soon, none of them will exist any longer, removing all astral beings from the world so humanity is free from all of it. Afterwards, the only powerful or magical creatures that will be left will be the apostles themselves, and perhaps the ultimate ritual to bring forth the God Hand. Nothing would be left to oppose them, and humanity would no longer even be able to conceive of anything that would. So basically, I'm proposing that over the past millennium, humans have purposely been disconnected with the likes of Elfhelm inhabitants, and destroying the tree and the island solidifies that they will not be able to return to the physical world. Now, how does this affect how magic works? Will Shurikay and Farnese still be able to enter the astral world in their ethereal bodies? I mean, I would imagine so, but the entities that they asked to borrow power from might be nowhere to be found. With one chapter left of the Elf Island segment of the story, I would imagine that we will get a regrouping and some explanations of what happened and where things will be going next. I could see a number of things happening. This might be the perfect segue into a full Skull Knight history backstory explaining everything that happened and that might happen in Falconia that will reenact whatever happened in Geyseric's kingdom. It might also be time to head to Falconia itself, or we might switch perspectives to Falconia and see what became of Casca once she arrives there. I think we might have the Casca in Falconia / the Journey to Falconia stories happening all simultaneously and leading us towards the final inevitable sacrifice or battle. But those are all just my theories anyways, so please let me know what you guys think below. Do you agree with how the spirit tree works, or do you see it in a different way? Let me know all your thoughts and opinions down below. Also, please don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see some more. I am trying to reach 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I'd be super appreciative if you help get me there. And once I do, there will be a sacrifice of my own I'm gonna have a nice pizza party for all of you. You're not gonna die in a sacrifice. Maybe.